not realize my whole bio was going to be read. Just provided it for some context. But that saves me a couple paragraphs of my speech today. So I realized that the theme for the campaign this year is cultivating change, and I hope that by hearing my biography, you can see that I don't look sick, and I certainly haven't done a lot of things in my life that would reflect that I have been through a lot. So I'm going to go with my speech, and then if there's any time or anyone has any questions, you can feel free to approach me afterwards or even ask on the floor. I'm open to anything. So I'd like to begin today with some audience participation. How many of you know what a flashbulb memory is? Okay. Well, in case you didn't, a flashbulb memory is a highly detailed, exceptionally vivid snapshot of a moment or circumstances in which a piece of surprising and consequential news was heard. It's a memory so vivid that it stays with you forever. I bet each and every one of you can remember where you were on 9/11. That is a perfect example of a flashbulb memory. And I thought I'd share one of my flashbulb memories with you today. I was 8 years old. It was October, right around Halloween, and one of our major sponsors, CarStar, was engaged in a Fright Lights campaign. They were selling glow sticks to help cars identify trick-or-treaters. It was a great campaign. But one day, I spotted a gruesome photo of a monster in the Montreal Gazette, which is where I'm from, accompanied by an article about kids staying safe on Halloween. The article highlighted the Fright Lights campaign and featured a paragraph on CF. It began with, cystic fibrosis is the most common fatal genetic disease affecting young Canadians. It ended with, there is no cure. The median age of survival is 37 years old. My 8-year-old heart sank to the floor. Fatal, what did that even mean? The dictionary told me it meant causing death. And that was the moment I realized the consequences of living with cystic fibrosis. That was the moment my childlike innocence would never quite reappear. At 8 years old, I recognized that I had huge dreams and less than 20 years to make them all happen. Life as I had once known it was over. Until then, I knew I'd take lots of pills, over 40 each day to be exact, ate way more food than my friends to try to gain weight, and spent a lot of time at the doctor. But never did I truly realize what that all meant for my future. Never did I understand what my parents were really trying to shield me from. That ticking clock and that expiry date leading up to that magic number in my head began to shape my life and all of my decisions for the years to follow. Consciously or not, it continues to guide my everyday existence, and while I refuse to be defined by my illness, it would be a lie to say that it has not made me who I am. So now you might be asking, and I'm not going to go into this too deep because you already know who I am. I'm 24, graduated from the University of Ottawa last year. I work at TD in corporate social responsibility right now. I love to sing, dance, but I also happen to live with a life-threatening illness that affects all aspects of my life. So I want to just check in with this crowd and don't be shy. How many of you actually know what cystic fibrosis is? Okay, a few. So just to sum it up pretty quickly, cystic fibrosis is the most common fatal genetic disease affecting young Canadians. While the disease is most widely recognized for affecting the lungs, creating a thick, sticky mucus, blocking the airways, and making it hard to breathe, causing life-threatening infections, it truly is a multidisciplinary illness that affects not only the lungs, but the digestive system and causes side effects like liver disease, diabetes, and osteoporosis. So many of the charities that we're actually going to be funding for during this campaign do multidisciplinarily affect CF as well. Many living with cystic fibrosis will also resort to organ transplants, most commonly of the lungs, but I've been dealt a cocktail of CF-related diabetes and had a liver transplant in 2009. So April was just National Organ and Tissue Donation Awareness Month, so that was a really important month for me too. So that transplant happened at 15. And in addition to daily complications around the disease, those are all things that I've undergone. I won't go too far into any more details and stats about the disease because, quite honestly, you could find those on Google or on the Cystic Fibrosis Canada website. But I'd like to share with you a little bit of what it's like day to day. Sometimes people ask me what it feels like to breathe with cystic fibrosis. Well, let me tell you, I don't really know how to answer that question because I've lived with cystic fibrosis for my entire life and struggled to breathe knowingly or unknowingly every single day. Research has said, if any of you would like to try it, that living with CF feels like breathing through a straw. Some days I can do a run or run a million errands and surprise myself, while others just getting out of bed or walking up a flight of stairs can be troublesome. But to be honest, many of my worst moments struggling have gone unnoticed because yesterday's challenges often become today's new normal. With a progressive and individualized disease like CF, the disease evolves with you, and you need to be constantly adapting to the challenges and hoops it throws your way. It's like going to boot camp training, and just when you think you've got the routine, the instructor comes in and changes it all up, so it's another fight. I'm assuming many of you in this room work full-time, and I know that you're probably familiar with the fact that it takes up a lot of time and energy and takes away from the things that you want or have to do. Well, statistics show that just to maintain a somewhat normal lifestyle with cystic fibrosis, people spend an equivalent of 4 months full-time work each year caring for themselves. And that's for a job I didn't apply for and I don't get paid for. When things aren't going well, that number changes to 3 hours a day, which converts to 1,095 hours a year. This does not include the time I actually spend at my full-time job. In 2017 alone, I spent 9 weeks in hospital. Now can I get another show of hands? Who takes the TTC here? Okay, a lot more participation. Great, well so do I. And like all public transit, we all know it has its ups and downs. Aside from the packed subway cars and the delays, my least favorite thing about taking public transit is the awful looks I get from people every time I cough. Once I had a lady throw a box of Kleenex at me on the subway. People look at me like I have the plague, even though I don't look sick. And in that moment, I wonder, should I reveal my most personal secret to these subway strangers just to have a moment of peace from the death stares? Or do I just keep coughing? Most of the time, I just keep coughing, but on a really bad day, sometimes I like to teach people a lesson. Another scenario about being on the subway is that looking like I do today, you may not realize what my lung function is like on that day. Sometimes it can be well below 70%. More death stares from people when I don't get up from my seat to give someone else a seat on the subway. This brings me to another challenge of living with CF and many of the diseases that are on the list today. As sick as I may be, I don't look it. That's both a blessing and a curse. On the one hand, I can fool everyone, even myself, into thinking that I'm fine. But on the other, it's a real challenge getting empathy and understanding from the world around you when you're living with a virtually invisible disease. The last few months have been a huge transition for me. I moved from full-time student to full-time work, and this has been an exciting yet challenging time for most adults. Try throwing CF into the mix. I credit a big part of becoming comfortable with telling my story with my 13-year involvement with Cystic Fibrosis Canada. I have learned the power of my message and my story and know that no one can tell it the way that I can. When I began in 2005 at the age of 11, I wasn't ready to use my own story. I was ashamed, but I let more and more people hear about my personal battle and realize what an effective tool my authenticity can be. So here I am speaking to you today, having raised over $300,000 for CF research and healthcare and continue to develop my voice for advocacy. I have also learned a unique perspective, that when you're staring at the barrel of a gun, you gain the appreciation for every birthday, every bad day, every good day, even the bad ones, and every opportunity to celebrate. So please keep that in mind, celebrate everything. The other thing I learned is that my fight with CF is nothing without our partners, and what a partnership we can have this year. Thank you for being here today to hear my story and for taking part in this campaign. My daily battle as a warrior is so much more meaningful when I know there's an army raising funds and awareness behind me. Your enthusiastic participation in this campaign will allow me and the 4,100 other Canadians living with CF to plan for tomorrow's milestones and celebrate them all. Together we can make CF mean cure found. And this is a real fact. Researchers are at a critical juncture in the 70-year fight against CF. We've never been closer to finding a cure. Today, the median age of survival for someone living with CF is 53.3 years old. That means that just since the flashbulb memory I shared with you, 16.3 years of building my legacy have been added to my hopes. In 16 years, due to funds raised, research and advocacy, and patient care across Canada, CF Canada has been able to increase that by 16 years. I'd like to highlight one more thing. As people live longer with CF, it doesn't mean we're living better. As people with CF achieve life's milestones, there's a great need for new policies to reflect our changing demographic. Like, how does one with CF maintain a full-time job, have children, support themselves financially, physically, and emotionally. There's an enormous amount of stress and burden living as an adult with a chronic illness, especially a progressive one like CF. But the CF community has a lot to contribute. We have unique perspectives that we want to share, and we want to advocate for all with chronic illnesses. Today, we live on our resourcefulness, but not the resources available to us. But to better our lives and make sure we are not only living longer, but better, we need your help to tackle things like depression, medications not covered by insurance, more time spent in hospital, and helping coping with the enormous burden of the expiry date and workplace accommodations. So let's make sure that me and the 4,100 other Canadians living with cystic fibrosis never catch up to our expiry dates, and make sure that we create some more incredible flashbulb memories in the future. Thank you.